Welcome to the Penthouse Podcast from Good Tenants. My name is Esther, and today's topic starts as a question. How does a reward system in the property management industry help the ecosystem? And what exactly should a reward system look like? When I say reward system, I mean if tenants, do something good in another property, how does it reward that tenant when they are moving to another property? Or if a tenant behaves badly on a property and they have to relocate, move to a new one, how does it help them? How does it help the landlord? How does it help the property manager? How does it help everyone generally in the ecosystem? That's our conversation for today. We'll be right back and we'll have our conversation with Mr. Kunle. Welcome back to the Penthouse Podcast. If you are just tuning in, Mr. Kule is here with us already. And the conversation is there a need for a reward system in the property management ecosystem? What difference will it make if we have a reward system? Yeah. So the question is for you. Is there a need?
Hi. So I will just spend some time talking about the way reward and is it punishment or what's
rewards and penalties?
And penalties. Yeah. That's the better word to use. Work. And how it improves the way people interact with each other, whether it's in a small group or it's in a nation or a company or a country.
Okay.
So I'll just give two examples. If you've ever been the light in, say, more organized crimes, there's already a system that punishes you for that.
Mm-hmm.
And you just get a ticket, right? Automatically. Nobody is running after you. And if you beat a ticket, if you beat the light second or third time again, at some point your driver's license sort of taken off you, like you can't drive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's why when you drive, say in the US, you are more likely to see people obey the rule. There's some stops in the US where there's no traffic light. Once you drive to that junction, you look out for who got there first. The person that got there first drives, and you wait for that person before you move. In Nigeria, and I'm sorry, I
try not to.
Or in many places, in many places where there's no system like this, there's a lot of chaos.
Okay.
Because people, first of all, they already build red lights, and I think they see it as some smart, way to get an extra minute into their lives. I don't know, but they just build red light for fun, and there is no consequence for the action. It just means that there are more accidents, there are more angry people, there are more traffic jams, because sometimes they're just going in together. And that's what happens in any system where there's no clear consequence for poor behavior. The other way to look at it is with the ride-hailing industry again, is how in the past, 10 years ago, before we had ride-hailing, you will order a taxi and you'll have to sort of manage the experience. It could be odd. First of all, it's not cheap. It was never cheap.
Yeah.
And you ride in this rickety cab that was hot, and the taxi man might come late. He might stop on the road to buy fuel or just decide he wants to eat. You just don't have a choice, right? And you have to just flow with it because you have to get to where you're going to and come back if you want to do that. Today, after about 10 years of riding in Africa, drivers are rated by riders.
Yeah.
And what happens is the better your rating, the more likely you can get a bonus from these ride-hailing companies. Mm-hmm. So now the reason why you enter a cab when you order on your phone and the driver is trying to behave a certain way. At some point, they'll try to give you sweets. They'll ask you for what kind of music you want to listen to. The reason why there was sudden change in customer experience, it wasn't because the people changed. It wasn't. It was just because there were systems put in place
Okay.
right? So prime good behavior. And even though there are people that still err, today on one of the riding platforms I know, once a driver gets reported for one thing twice, the person is pulled off the platform on one of the riding platforms. Of course, different platforms have different standards.
Yeah.
And that's why for people that are very conversant with riding, if you're thinking about security, there's one that is known as number one because they don't mess up. There's a second one, then there's a couple of other ones, right? So, and also the same thing with riders. Riders are also rated, right? And so there is a minimum standard that has been set, and people generally will move around those standards, right? So when we bring this to the property management industry or property facility management industry, I think that you have to, beyond just tenants, there are three stakeholders again. There is a tenant, there is a landlord, and there is the property or facility manager, depending on the case.
Yeah.
And we have to think about rewards and penalties at each of these levels, so that one person doesn't feel like, they are, there's a focus on them in terms of penalties.
Yeah.
So I'll start with talking about the people I think are core to the industry, the property managers. Then I'll come to tenants and then finally to landlords.
Okay.
What will make a property manager provide a great experience to tenants and landlords? And by great experience, I'll just give two examples. You report to the property manager that you have a problem to fix in your apartment, your plumbing is bad. Or the landlord asks for a report, a financial report. There are two kinds of responses to this, or even three, actually, that I've seen. One is prompt response. Report gets to landlord in 24 hours. Or the property manager calls you as a tenant has made a complaint and rushes to your apartment, or gets somewhere to check out stuff, or just communicates with you in the first 15 minutes after you make a complaint, and tries to resolve those things in maybe 2 days or 3, depending on how quickly it needs to be resolved or how important is, whatever the complaint is. Then there's a second one who just takes his time. And then again, that's not because, sometimes it's because it's just not bothered. But sometimes it's because they have so many things and it can be so overwhelming, right? I just take their time. And sometimes you've already fixed the issue before they come back to you. But at least they try to come back. Then they had this third one that just...
Did you just say they try to come back?
Or sometimes.
Okay, because, I know some that forget.
Yeah, so that's the
they just
one.
Move on like...
That's the final one. So that's the final one. There's ones that just completely forget. And the question for me is, what will make property and facility managers be that first example? I think the answer to that, and I'm not trying to sort of project that this is the solution, but I think the answer to that is less of punishing bad behavior. You want to reward good behavior. So if you have 3 property managers in your business, let's say I run a property management business, I have 3 property managers. I pay them all the same salary.
Okay.
Regardless of how well they perform. Maybe I can't even track how well they perform. Maybe I don't have a way to track it. Right? If there's a really good performer and there's one average and there's one that's just below average. But if the below average one knows how to play politics well, you can get away with stuff. And then in the end, you're paying them all the salaries. What is the incentive for the first guy to keep doing well? Is either he's a natural, excellent person and he moves to a different company because he's like, I can't work.
Like he's poached and...
Yeah. Or he just realizes that there's no advantage to being great.
Okay.
So he just reduces his standards to the other ones, right? That can happen.
I see.
But the question is, what will make those 3 people try to improve their standards? So the way I think about this is create a system that tracks how quickly they respond to customer complaints, how quickly they fix them, the quality of the experience that they are fixing them. And in good tenants, you have something called a complaints management system that allows complaints to come into a central point where everybody can see what the complaints are. But it allows property and facility managers follow up on the status, and it's transparent to everybody. So they can see how quickly those problems are resolved. They can see the way the property facility manager is sort of investigating, at different points, just the quality of the process.
Okay.
And when the property manager resolves the problem, right, the tenant has the opportunity to rate the behavior of
the property.
It's just really your experience. Was it well fixed? What was the quality of the experience? Customer service while fixing it, right? Yeah. And all of this is done, via WhatsApp. We've created a system to do that actually tracks that behavior. Just the way you rate a driver if you're using the ride in the app. And so that rating, for example, can be used to define their bonus at the end of the year or their bonus quarterly. And suddenly, people realize that, hey, if I'm doing better, I earn more. Right? And whether you like it or not, that
wants to do better.
That changes, and then particularly set really good standards.
Okay.
Then there will now be a minimum baseline of what's expected for everybody. Okay. People will keep to it, and then some people will actually go above it because it's now clear that my behavior is tracked. My conversation with one of the companies that we're onboarding, this was important for them that they could track the quality of the experience. Yeah. Okay. So when you do it, obviously, the reward is potentially more income, potentially promotion when you want to promote them. They know that there's an objective way to track the experience versus subjective way where someone is very loud in meetings and you just assume that the person is the best, which happens a lot, in this part of the world. So that's for property managers, and of course the other thing they do that you can set rewards and penalties for. The second stakeholder will be tenants.
Yeah.
Tenants are important because they actually define a lot about this whole ecosystem. Tenants can live in an apartment and be late on their bills, default in payments, for different reasons. And I'm not saying that all tenants want to do that, but there are times when there are clear reasons why. There are times where they're just doing that because they can do it. Just the way people can beat the lights because they can do it.
Mm-hmm.
There are people that just default in payments because they can do it. Or people damage apartments that they live in, right? Again, the goal is how do you incentivize good behavior and how do you discourage bad behavior?
Mm-hmm.
That's sort of the goal of all this conversation.
Yeah.
I've actually had landlords spend 2 to 3 years of rent to renovate an apartment after a tenant leaves.
Mm-hmm. So
just imagine spending your income over 3 years to renovate an apartment after a tenant has rented for 5 years. So you want to get a tenant that will keep property in good shape, and potentially when the person is living, there's very minimal maintenance. You also want someone that pays rent regularly.
Yeah.
Right. But again, what's the incentive to do that? If I was somebody who was naturally a great person, and I have very high standards, I'll probably do that, because I have high standards. It's something that's personal to me.
Yes.
If I was a bad person, this is a great opportunity for me to show my skills and all the craftiness I have to sort of, give my landlord all the headaches he can get where I live. But then it's just like the average person on the road who has all the options. We have to put an incentive for the person to do right.
Yeah.
And so, the way we've thought about it at Good Tenant is sort of the way banking has sort of thought about it. If you take a loan in Bank A, and you're defaulting in that loan, if you go to Bank B to get a loan, there are records that you're defaulting and you most likely will not get the loan, or you get the loan at the higher interest rate.
Yeah, but banks have bank verification numbers. And then the national identity number, there are numbers that are unique to just you.
Yeah. So that you can use to track, right? And I'll talk about that, right? So, but the main point is that there's a system that tracks your behavior. At least when you take a loan formally, right, from a formal institution, we can see how you performed on that loan, and you can see if you're a defaulter. And this new bank can decide, we're not giving you a loan, or we're giving you a loan at a very high interest because of your past, of your history. So if we borrow that example and bring it to property management, it means that we can create a system where there's records of payments So they pay rent on time. Were they subletting their apartments? When they were, or were they damaged to the apartments? And the way to this obviously is to create a system where property managers are rating tenants, maybe twice a year or once a year.
Okay.
Right. And they're also doing inspections of the property regularly. Right. So all of that goes into this system.
Okay.
And let's say a tenant moves out of that apartment and wants to rent from somewhere else. There's a way that they can track the behavior of tenants in the past apartment. And these are very good.
New landlords.
Yeah. I'll see, how has this person performed when they were renting an apartment before?
Oh, okay.
Now, the goal is not to punish tenants.
Yeah.
The goal is to ensure that because there's not the consciousness that my behavior has been monitored and rated,
okay,
I'll do the right thing. Right? And so it suddenly means that there's less investment in maintenance for landlords. And as I said, in different conversations, there is now potentially rents not going as high as they're going because bad behavior actually leads to rents going up.
Increments.
Right? Because landlords need to keep maintaining. By the time they spend X millions on maintenance, they're going to raise the rent. And that's what happens everywhere today. Right? So we can keep rents at a certain level, gradually increasing, but not increasing drastically if the right thing is done. Again, the conversation here is about incentives.
Yeah.
So if I'm moving to a new apartment and I've paid for the past apartment, and the landlord can see my history, I can potentially negotiate a fair rent. Right?
More than what is maybe on the market.
Maybe not lower than what's in the market, but I can negotiate to what is on the market, or maybe slightly lower than what's in the market.
Okay.
And since the landlords are now wiser, they know that long-term peace is more important than short-term. Because you can pay, for example, you can get someone to rent your apartment for 2 million, and the person is paying 2 million over the next 3 years, and he moves out. And there's very little damage, right? The person is maintaining the apartment. Or you get someone to pay 2.5 million, you pay 7.5 million, but in 3 years' time, you pay 7 million to renovate.
Oh, that's a huge loss.
Right?
Yeah.
So, which is profitable? 2 million over 3 years is profitable. Yeah. So, the goal is to get incentivized good behavior so that there's benefits for everyone. Even property managers, if tenants are behaving well, get less issues that they have to deal with. They don't have to run after rent. The rent comes in on time. Yeah. I mean, one of the other things we're thinking about that the industry can look at is how do you incentivize quick bill payment? Give them a cashback. Yeah. If they always pay rent on time, can you do a cashback? Can you get 1% back of their rent? Because 1% of your rent back, for example, let's say rent is 2 million.
Yeah.
Property management company maybe earns 200K per annum. 10% of that. 1% of that is maybe 10,000 naira or maybe, I don't know, 20,000 naira. Right? Do you want to give 1% if, for example, in a year, a tenant has very minimal complaints, doesn't damage anything, pays rent on time? Or and you give 20K back? Or do you want to spend 30,000 naira, 40,000, 50,000 naira driving to his apartment? You've not paid rent. Come, lock door, open. Oh, you have damage today. Your child broke the glass. Right? If you create ways to incentivize good behavior, it's actually profitable for everyone in the ecosystem.
It would be nice to get like a hamper from, a landlord at the end of the year for just being a good tenant. I mean,
for example,
it'd be nice to get that.
Because what that means is that if your neighbor said they got an hamper, they didn't get an hamper, they'll ask why.
Yeah.
And then that's short term, obviously. Short term is you benefit for being a good tenant.
Yeah.
And people can see it, and potentially people can say, oh, maybe I can become a good tenant. Or maybe not. But there's always the second point is the time they're moving out of the apartment and they're going to rent somewhere else, then their history can be tracked. And then a landlord will say, oh, from your history, I have to charge you more. Right?
Okay.
And then for you that's been a good tenant, you can say, oh, landlord, this is my history. I've been a good tenant. Just same way with loans. I've been paying my loans regularly.
Yeah.
I don't default on loans. I'm more likely to get a lower interest loan, right? And maybe this is also a conversation to have about caution fees.
Yeah, I was coming to that to say, I mean, caution fees are supposed to cater for
but
damages and things like that.
I mean, you rent an apartment of 2 million, you pay 10% caution fees, 200K. In 3 years' time, landlord is spending 7 million to renovate the apartment. Right?
Okay.
So again, it's also an important conversation about caution fees. Should they be 10% for everybody?
That's fine.
Should it be 10% for somebody else? Should it be 5% for me because my risk is low? Because my history has shown that I do well with the apartments, and the inspections in the last 2 years by the property manager, when they come and check, they don't find damages.
Okay.
In fact, I fix things myself, many times before they get bad. Versus somebody else who just leaves everything down. If I'm moving to a new apartment and renting, I should be able to say, look at my history. Landlord has never complained. I'm only able to pay 5% cushion fee. Someone else has damaged things. Why are they paying 10%? Why are they not paying 20%? Why is there no, punishment, or maybe a better word I should use, not punishment,
Penalties, yes.
right? Because at the end of the day, what you're trying to find is everybody come to this standard.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
This minimum standard, so that there's, because for everyone they understand.
Okay, but before we move on, I am going to say that if we say the reward system for the tenants is, you get rewards outside where you live currently. I know you've mentioned a reward where you live, which is like cashback and things like that. It means that the next building should also have their property, because if maybe the property I live in right now is on a property management software, and they're using all these softwares that can trace, the behavior, that can do the rating, and the next building doesn't have. So that might be a challenge.
I mean, something we are pushing in the industry today, starting from Lagos and Nairobi, and we're trying to do that across major cities, is to get more people to use Google Tenant, more property management to use Google Tenant. And interestingly, today we had very good acceptance, among the major players in Lagos, and we're doing the same thing in Nairobi. So my encouragement to landlords watching this, or any other person that is not a property manager is, hey, get your property manager to use Google Tenant. So the more people use it, the more we can track behavior of everyone, whether it's property managers or
the landlords.
And the final player is the landlord.
Yes.
There are people who tell me, I've had different stories of landlords not fixing their roof and rain is falling in.
Oh, of course.
That's why you should just
really,
and of course, landlords like, go and fix it.
Okay.
And there's nothing for you to do. You're already expiring in 7 months. You either choose to say, I lose the 7 months and move out, or you go to court and waste a lot of time in court, or you just fix it.
Okay.
Right? Or you get a good landlord who fixes things on time. Right? So how do we incentivize good behavior from landlords? How do we make sure they fix things on time? How do we make sure they are not... I've seen cases also of landlords who might just be oppressive, right? How do you create that? And I think the answer to that again is rating. The same way property managers can rate tenants or landlords can rate tenants, can we create a system where they can rate landlords, they can rate their landlord experience, right? What they saw, what landlord promised them when they were moving in. Yeah. I've heard landlords say, "Oh, I'll do X, Y, Z," and they don't do it.
What are others versus what I?
Yeah. So, if we rate those experiences also, where tenants can rate the quality of experience in an apartment, and that information is public, then it means that in the future, the landlords are likely to get people begging for their apartment.
I hope landlords will not. I hope they'll agree to things like this. I mean, knowing that your rating is out there in public.
Again, right? I mean, the answer is in public. Yeah, the way for it to work is just the way with writing is that the person trying to order the right thing. So I'm trying to rent the apartment, I can check your apartment, for example, right? And what happens is, if everybody, it works for, again, don't forget that it works for everyone. If you get the right kind of tenants, as a landlord, you get more money, you get more return on investment. You don't spend money on maintenance. So if we're being honest about improving the ecosystem for everyone, then we have to commit to doing the right thing. So whether you're a landlord or tenant, landlord should not be scared of your rating going up, because your tenants, let me explain that again. Now, the goal is that the incentive is for landlords to do the right thing. Right? If they do the right thing, the apartments there will be more demand for the apartments. So the apartments today in different cities, and in Lagos, for example, where people are on the queue trying to move into those apartments.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yes, definitely. I've seen some of them. I've managed some of them where people are on the queue
to get into those kind of apartments.
And they're not cheap, because the experience there has been great. Tenants are giving good ratings, and so they're just waiting. So do you want to be a landlord where you can define your prices because there's a lot of demand, or you want to be a landlord where you're just getting the minimum possible rent? Right? And every time you have an apartment to rent, you spend a lot of money renovating, and then it's empty because people are like, oh, why should I pay this rate for the apartment? Do you get?
Yeah.
So there's a clear advantage to everyone in the ecosystem, right? So today in ride hailing, or in banking, people can get their loans. Or let's not focus on ride hailing. There are more people going to ride hailing because they can see that, I can earn my income.
Yeah.
There are more people using it as riders because they can get a good experience. The ride hailing company also earns the revenue.
Yeah.
We win for everybody. This part that is suffering, that is losing business, is the side of the business that has not done this. So the old taxis, right? They've lost business. So even in this industry, the people that would get more business are people that are going to show that, we are really doing well. Look at the way our tenants rate us. More people are going to go to them. Or property management companies, look at the way our experience with our property managers. They will get more business. In the end, rating looks, to the wrong person, it looks like, they are about to put me out publicly.
Yeah.
So the guy, to the landlord or tenant or property manager that wants to grow and that wants to increase business for themselves, it's a massive opportunity. Right, to differentiate themselves from every other person. Massive opportunity.
Yeah, I could just think of how we transitioned from the yellow cabs to the ride-hailing apps, and how for cabs that are not on. I mean, if you're not on the app, you're not just an option. Yeah, so I've just.
Or you're not shown to people
who
who don't
value that, who don't
value that experience. Or maybe in some cases, you're not shown to very few people, so there's less demand.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So sometimes you might have a good car and you just don't want all of this. But again, you're going to have less demand. Yeah, but for most people, obviously, the quality of their vehicles means that they can't get on the app, and it means that they don't get a lot of demand. And they're now, you see them, if you drive around, or they're just parked, waiting, hoping for somewhere to come and, hop on them. Whereas if you're on this app and you're doing well, your rating is great.
Yeah.
You're getting a lot of requests.
Yeah. That's absolutely true. That's absolutely true.
And for landlords, honestly, just say this. Again, I always say this. Your real profits, in my opinion, and maybe if you think about it very well, long-term profit, is not in yearly rents. Is capital gains in 20 years, 30 years, where you or your children decide to sell that apartment. That is determined, that price that you sell it for is determined by how it's managed in 30 years, in those preceding years. Right? So people, honestly, you can have the same building, the same location, sell for 1 billion naira and 500 million naira, just because of how well it is maintained.
So even the ratings and penalties has effects on the building itself.
Yeah, I mean, it has effects on, if you use ratings and penalties for both sides of the equation, you increase the probability that people are going to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And it means you reduce how much you spend on maintenance. And you increase the potential your property will be in great shape in 20, 30 years when you have to sell or when you decide to hand over to your children.
Yeah.
Right? So it's so connected to return on investment. So connected to return on investment, and there's no reason why forward-thinking landlords or tenants or property managers don't want to do this, because in the end, it helps all of us. Landlords get better return on investment, property managers also get better return on investment and can focus on more important things. Tenants get good return on investment because they spend less time running after issues. They can, focus on their families, focus on improving their careers, focus on earning more money. Rather than, my plumbing is bad today or something is bad today because it wasn't done right first time.
I just want to say thank you for sharing this insight with us, Kunle. But, as a way to end this conversation, I'd like to take note of some keywords: forward-thinking individuals, forward-thinking tenants, forward-thinking property managers, forward-thinking landlords can take advantage of the innovation in the property management space. Now, if you remember the way it was with the ride-hailing cabs, initially we thought that, the yellow taxis in Africa, in Nigeria, we used to think they were cheaper than the ride-hailing cabs until we realized that, oh no, there's a control, to the amounts being paid. There's a measurement of time, there's a measurement of everything, the service and everything you're paying for. You're able to account for it using the ride-hailing cabs, as it was, and trying to convince the older generation to use it became easy after a while. And so I would encourage every forward-thinking tenant, forward-thinking landlord, forward-thinking property manager to hop on these innovative platform and use it to manage your property. We've come to the end of the Penthouse podcast for today. If you've missed the previous episodes, you can just go back to the previous episodes and watch our conversations and look forward to more topics that has to do with the property management space right here. Till I see you again, do stay safe. Bye-bye.